Thank you very much. Thank you for taking your seats. So, my next guest, I think, really needs no introduction. And these words by the wonderfully, hugely talented and very beautiful Kate Winslet, I think that our next guest, Anthea Turner, epitomises these wonderful and insightful words. Let's just read them. There you go.
We try.
There you go. But my next guest, Anthea Turner, she's hosted iconic shows like Blue Peter. Everyone remember Blue Peter here? There we go.
Yep. Of course we do.
Top of the Pops. Yes. GMTV, of course. And a 35-year career. I mean, just extraordinary. And you continue to entertain audiences nationwide. Now in your 60s, Anthea is a vibrant person championing the mature market as the silver marketing's ambassador. And she's launched her skincare range by Anthea Turner, which you can see at the back of the marquee, and also inspiring readers with her many books as well. And I think you were launching just a book for children, weren't you? Was it this week or last week?
Yes. In fact, yes, last Friday.
It's amazing. So it's a no boundaries to your talents. But here she is to share her powerful story of life's transitions, which I think absolutely epitomises what we're doing here today. So before I sit down and invite Anthea to chat, please can you just show appreciation to her in advance, because she's so busy.
Thank you, Sarah. Actually, I'm just going to stand up just for a moment because I have a much better view of everybody here. Can I just actually, on behalf of all of us, thank you, Sarah, for pulling this together. This is no mean feat. We all know what it's like trying to get 4 or 5 friends together. But when you're trying to do something like this, and people come, they drop out, and everything that goes with it, it's a lot of work. And you do it from the heart, and you do it because you have a huge love of your job, which is, I know you don't think of it as a job, it's a vocation. But thank you very much on behalf of all of us. I am here because I was got by Sarah. I am brand ambassador for an organisation called Silver Marketing, which means I represent the scrubbed up over 50s. And this has become quite a fascinating organisation that I sort of said yes to and then thought about it later because I wasn't quite sure why they'd asked me. But really what it is, it's a marketing group who advises other marketing companies how to speak to the scrubbed up over 50s. And of course, what happens is that they tend to employ a huge amount of people that are 12, they have no idea, and they lump it all together. And, it's very different if you're 45 to 55 to 55 to 65 to 65, 70 and beyond. There's little different things of which we have touched on quite a lot of them, very important ones. By the way, today I was making notes while people were talking. There was questions I wanted to ask. I know some people are still in the audience who spoke, but I have got questions and observations. And if you have as well, I'd like to think that this is referred to as a fireside chat. Where is the frickin' fire? I only put a jumper in just at the end. I ran out and I better take a jumper with me. I haven't taken it off. But if you've got questions, it makes it, this is more of a chat, really. So if you have questions about anything, about things that we've already spoken about, because there have been some great pearls of wisdom have come out, and some of them have just made me laugh. I always like the one about who's naked, swimming naked when the tide goes out. I read that, I think it was in a Dennis Thatcher's book. And my ex-husband, we'll get onto that in a moment, was actually made bankrupt, and he was frickin' naked. So I'm gonna stitch on him. Anyway, I digress.
Here we go. Here we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to also give a plug for the Silver Marketing Association. It is absolutely because of Debbie Marshall, who can't be with us today, but she was here last year. And for those of you who remember, she beautifully steered one of the panels. And she's one of those people which I know will sort of come on a little bit, sort of talk about friendship and women in midlife and stuff and things. But I think one of the things that's so interesting is how, again, particularly in what I do, we're very much in this sort of arena of trying to help women and I believe strongly that we rise by lifting others. And I think Debbie's absolutely of that ilk,
completely.
and very generous. And in fact, I remember she said to me, I'm going to introduce you to Anthea. I think she'd be a wonderful person to come and speak at one of your things.
Oh, so she was her fault.
Oh, she was absolutely instrumental. You were obviously nobbled by me, of course, but of something I've been accused of before. I know, and but she's one of those very generous people, and I think it is really interesting actually how, if you take that sort of Madeleine Albright wonderful quote where she says, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women, and I think actually in this world there are plenty of women who don't. They get up the ladder for whatever reason. And then they forget about who's helped them up there, or sisterhood is only sort of said in words, but not in actions. And Debbie is absolutely that. And Anthea, I can see that in you too. And thank you for so generously giving your time.
Well, on George's analogy, which I will not forget that, I got to think, who are these people that I want around me? So we want to know that all our girlfriends are around us.
Isn't it? You absolutely got me there. Thank you, George. So look, so here we are, this sandwich generation, and of course, we've been kind of informed and inspired by the first two panels and stuff and things. But for Anthea, for me, it's almost, when I was kind of doing the preparation of what we were going to talk about this fireside chat, apologies there's no fire, and apologies that the weather forecast didn't quite live up to expectations. Apparently it is going to get very sunny about 12 o'clock, so back now, so we will be outside by then. But it's almost to me like you're the common denominator. We've this
Common.
common denominator.
I come from Stoke-on-Trent. I have no airs and graces.
That's throwing me. And so, talking about longevity, here we have this absolutely beautiful person who never, you talked about, age 12, that you look like you're age 12. You've been married twice, divorced twice. You obviously just sort of alleged to that. You've had a rough time in the press. I've heard you sort of talk about, those tricky conversations across the generations, within generations. Clearly, you've kind of you've healed with your sister, and here you are, you're absolutely that epitome of midlife and celebrating what comes next. And so I guess sort of my opening question, I always think the journey is interesting. Here you are, you've opened up with, you come from Stoke-on-Trent. What motivates Anthea Turner? What's his journey that it's like you never stop? I mean, it's so fascinating. Tell us how you fit in as the linchpin in today's
Well, the
conversation.
M6 Southbound did help me when I left Stoke-on-Trent. But actually, I thought there was a hindrance, not coming from the metropolis with all these glamorous people, but in actual fact, I'm rather glad that I have some very solid roots in my family. I think, when you say, what motivates you, what keeps you going, and I think I might speak for most of us. I mean, there's lots of lovely, fluffy answers you could give to that one, but it's actually necessity. Because what is the alternative? The alternative is not great, so therefore keep going, and that is through the ages. And of course, whatever age you are, you feel that age. But we have to remember, a friend of mine who is actually sitting at the back there always says to me, life makes more sense backwards. So if you go back through your ages, then I think there's that thing that's called imposter syndrome, and I've heard it an awful lot. And people say, oh yes, I've got it, and haven't we all got it a little bit? I mean, isn't that something that and actually it's quite good that we've all got a little bit of that. So we're always trying to prove ourselves, and yes, I can do that, and put ourselves into slightly more dangerous situations, whatever your parameters are of danger. But I think, I'm dyslexic, so I think that I tap dance my way through life trying to say, don't look this way, don't look that way. And so all these little things that you have make you the person and the people that we all sit here today. We all know ourselves, really, don't we? And they make us us. And we are okay. We really are. We can have little tweaks along the way. I'm a great believer in the fact that you are always sort of editing your book of life. and changing and checking, because we do, we have different feelings and different thoughts as we move through the ages, and we've been speaking very eloquently. We've had experts who've spoken so eloquently about those, and many of them resonated with myself. But I think it's, if I had to come up with one word, necessity.
Yes, and what I find fascinating is getting to know you in real life, and having seen you obviously on TV and all those sort of different forms we were talking about. You project confidence, you project joy, you project happiness, and no matter what. And I think it's so interesting. You've got some of Anthea's books at the back, but in this book, How to Age Well, the secrets of how to age well, you open up with, I have always believed the secret to looking young is not in a pot of cream, but in your attitude. Jump in the sea on a sunny day or in a perfect puddle in the rain, and you'll see what I mean. And so I guess two things, because I think that the question I imagine everybody wants to know here is, how do you look so amazing and so consistently amazing? When I had my photograph taken just now with Anthea, I said, do you ever have a bad photograph? And where does this sunny disposition come from? And it's so enduring. Is it really you?
Well,
answer that. Not in one of Lucy's 3 words, but you've got a little extra time.
Don't get me wrong, I have days when I am not so positive, as we all do. I think it is a learnt behaviour. If I had to psychoanalyse myself and had to go back and back and back and back, and we are products of we're just sitting here sort of, we are still the children that we started out. We just happen to be in a slightly different body now. But in actual fact, if you go right the way back, and I look at my 3 gorgeous stepdaughters, and it makes me laugh, because they're in their late 20s, early 30s now, and all they are is the adult version of the children they always were. And all the little nuances and all the little character traits are still there. And I think that probably goes for all of us. I mentioned that I'm dyslexic. I'm not horribly dyslexic, otherwise I wouldn't have ever been able to have done my job. My dyslexia is one that I can read fluently, but don't ask me to write anything down without spell check. Spell check saved my life. Because of that, I spent a huge amount of time as a youngster doing everything that didn't involve writing, and knowing that if I was going to make anything of myself, I was going to have to work on my personality traits, and certainly not say, would you like to see my O-level certificates? Because they were never going to be anything to write home about, due to the fact that obviously back in the 70s, when you took exams, you were going to be judged straight away on your written work. And that never looked very good. I was marked down on everything. So, of course, what kids like that do, you manage to do. You do drama and music and just about everything you can come up with. I've got pottery, A-level, art, you name it, knitting, crochet. Sewing. I've got excelled in domestic science, because it meant I didn't have to really write anything down. It's very different now. Actually, even if you do pottery A-level, I think you probably have to do a thesis, but I got away with throwing a bit of clay around. That was great. And so when I say tap dancing through life, I think that if I had to analyse myself, I think that trait started at an early age, that I was just going to have to open doors by using other means. And I genuinely felt that my calling was actually in probably PR, public relations of some description. And I think that would have been, had it not have been for an accident, would have met somebody at a party who said they're looking for a girl to do some video jockeying on Sky. I would have gone that way. I would have been doing the sort of things that you've been doing. So I think that is a learnt behaviour. I'm a Gemini, so I probably, I can tap dance around quite well. But it's not, we all have bad days. We all have bad days. We've been talking about divorce. I know Barbara is, I think, still in the room. And, some of my worst days were most definitely going through a divorce. And I do remember being in a situation where it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd been in my pajamas for the last 2 days, looking like death. It had all come as I was the person, it was a big shock to me. And my mum rang, and she obviously lives in Stoke-on-Trent. I was down here. And she couldn't get any sense out of me. And she said, right, she said, you have to do exactly what I say now. She said, get into the shower, have a shower, wash your hair, blow dry it, put some makeup on, and ring me back. Okay. And because she told me to do that, and I needed somebody just to tell me what to do. And I did. And I rang her back, and I had a proper conversation with her. Because I did. I looked in the mirror, and I got my war paint on, and I looked a little bit more like Anthea than the person who was in her pajamas sobbing. I still got puffy eyes, but I was looking a bit better. And, we're women. I think it happens to men as well. Maybe they just don't admit it. But sometimes you need to put your armour on to go into battle. And she taught me a great lesson, which was always to get up, scrub up, and show up. And I have used that throughout my professional life. Doctor television, or doctor work, or doctor just going to pick the kids up from school, or whatever you're doing that day, actually scrub up and show up. Sometimes when you put the face on, you then start to adopt that face. And that is probably, my mother's no longer with us. She lived to 92. And she is inside me because that's what she would have done. And so there are times when I use the gene method, and it sounds sort of little, just putting some clothes on and some makeup and blow drying your hair. Actually, it works. And whatever tools you need to get through, whatever it is that faces you, it works. Sorry, I'm going on. I'm just going on.
No, I think everyone's really enjoying it. I thank you for sharing that so candidly, because I think it's so interesting. I know we've got Sarah Weston, who's a great friend in the audience, and Sarah, I know you sat here up on the podium in past conferences of ours, and you've used the words "I choose positivity," and I think that is a very interesting phrase. If that's what's going through my head as you're talking, you choose positivity and you choose to put that wrapper on. But then it works, it rubs off.
Oh yes, I am the person who is, if I'm running late, I think, well, if I'd got into the car 10 minutes earlier, I would have been on time, but I could have had an accident. So therefore, it was my guardian angels looking after me. I talk to my team. I don't know who they are. They're somewhere in the ether. I talk to the universe. I do put out, I am a great believer in putting out good energy. We can practice this and play around with it. I do it with cab drivers. I love to get in a cab, and especially if I've got some miserable gits, and I think, right, I'm going to have you sorted by the end of this trip. And it's a game I play, and I quite enjoy it, to be honest. And it's playing that game with energy. You can do it to yourself, you can do it to your friends, you can give off a good energy, and people talk about the ripple effect, and you will get it back. I'm not woo-woo about these things, but I do know it's like we don't have to be religious, but we can walk into a church. Sometimes when I'm on holiday, I don't know why I do it on holiday, just walk into a church and all of a sudden you feel very calm, don't you? You can just say, I'm just going to sit here for 10, 20 minutes, however long I want to, really, but there's a calmness. So that means if you understand that sort of energy, you can understand a bad energy, and you can understand how to change an energy.
Yeah.
And I think those three things are little exercises that are worth playing around with.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that is, thank you for being honest, showing that vulnerability. So you talked a little bit about imposter syndrome, which is something that, we have talked a lot about at Really Help the Club, because I think, as you said, if we're all truthful, we all suffer from it. Yes. I know I suffer from it every time I have to sit down and interviews or have a conversation with someone as amazing as you. It's challenging, but again, you exude, you embody confidence. Do you suffer from it?
I think we all do to a degree. I think I feel more confident now, sitting here as a woman in her mid-60s. I feel more confident now than I did 10, 20 years ago, because I think I sort of come to know me. I understand myself. I know how I will react. We are all pattern behaviour. And the good thing about, I've only been into therapy once because I just needed it, because I couldn't see the wood for the trees. So I thought, I'm going to go and try this. And I learned about pattern behaviour. I learned about my ex-husband's pattern behaviour, which meant that I had to learn about mine, which means that I can now spot it in other people. And it's another great, apart from energy changing, is actually studying somebody's pattern behaviour. And we do, and there are great patterns, there are some very positive patterns, and there are also, we have to know our destructive patterns. And I got to know my destructive patterns and how to, which is probably going back to a little bit of tap dancing and people pleasing, where you're not pleasing yourself. You thinking about how, projecting to other people, how can I be nice, how can I do this, how can I make it better, can I make it better, I'm a fixer, I always want to make everything better. And sometimes you can't, and sometimes that also brings you down. And I'm sure that there's people in this room who are also fixers and realise that if you're not careful, you end up fixing everything for everybody else, and you don't sort of fix yourself. Now, that's the way the wiring is. I'm aware of it, and I have been able to rewire my switchboard a little better than I probably have in the past. I recently, on my Instagram, did a little competition. It's a makeover competition. I didn't really think a huge amount about it. I pulled together my hairdresser, hair colorist, a company that are going to, find a nice outfit for the lady who wins it, a makeup artist, and the makeover competition. And all they had to do, it's very Instagrammy, where you follow everybody and then we pick a winner. I didn't ask anybody to say why they wanted to win this competition. That wasn't part of it. But we put it out, and have a look on my Instagram, you will find it. And there are reams and reams of people wanting to enter the competition and then saying why they needed this pick-me-up, this makeover. And I got to the point, actually, at the end, it was difficult reading all of them. I have slowly read all of them, but it makes difficult reading. But if I had to pick one thing, which is, because you're always looking for the ribbon, the thread, the message through what everybody, none of these people know each other. They're all on Instagram. They follow me because they're probably scrubbed up over 50s, who need scrub. Some of them wanted a bit more scrubbing up. And it's confidence. It's absolutely losing confidence. And if I have to bore down into one, what are the keys of life? It's confidence. And we've talked about community, but community gives you confidence within that community. Friendships give you confidence. There's lots of things that give you confidence. I'm not talking about a cocky confidence. I can stand on a stage and I can sing and dance and do anything. I can't, by the way. I can dance a bit, but I can't sing. I think I can in the car. You wouldn't believe how much I think I can sing in the car. But it's confidence, and how things have taken away, because And if anybody, did anybody ever watch that fantastic series? It was called 7 Up. Oh my God. Didn't that get to you? So if you didn't watch it, they took a child at 7, then they revisited all these kids at 14, at 21, at 28. They went on, didn't they, into their 40s. But you saw life had taken away this childlike confidence that we actually all started out with. We were all quite confident. And then some things happened and things ate away at us. And I think it's probably the saddest thing if you get to a point where you've got more air miles behind you than you have in front and you have lost your confidence. And I know we talk an awful lot about, young people and, who are having problems. But this generation, we need our confidence. We need our confidence to look after the younger generation. We need our confidence to look after us. We need our confidence to look after our friends. We just need confidence. Now, I wish I had, I can say, oh yes, confidence on the keys of life. If I had also the definitive, this is how you get your confidence back, then I would be a multimillionaire, yes, but I'm not.
But it's so interesting, and it's that kind of conundrum again, which I think we spend a lot of time in this community talking about, is that that kind of point of midlife where, here you are, probably, in my case, in your 50s, you've probably spent the last 2 or 3 decades looking after just about everybody except for yourself. And Lucinda Miller, you said beautifully about the importance of putting that oxygen mask on. Mm-hmm. And, and sort of reclaiming yourself almost, rediscovering that spirit. And it's what, again, we call your power decade, which is, we do a whole morning about that as well. But, you've really been caught up with that, what I call the business of life, looking after everybody. You've been someone's mother, sister, aunt, wife, whatever it is, and caught up with doing an awful lot of admin as well, and usually somebody else's admin. But I think part of that kind of confidence comes from a sense of purpose, and so it's community, and as you're talking about this sort of how you get chipped away at that sense of you hit that kind of midlife point and you become invisible almost. But here you are, in your 6th decade, and you started another business. Here you are, you've written yet another book. You are so resourceful. Where do you think that sense of purpose comes from, and that kind of deep resilience? Because it's very, it's really evident. It's very strong.
I might have to go back to necessity.
Yeah.
Necessity. But while you were asking me that question, and I was thinking of the conversations that we've had about fitness and why people turn up at a gym and why they employ people who are in the business of fitness. And why do they walk in? And there was a lot said, but maybe we're human. So we want to look better and we want to feel better. That actually is the bottom line. Because if we look better and we feel better, we're actually more able to deal with things. We can't stop things happening because life happens. But we are stronger to be able to deal with those things. And that's whether you're talking about a physical strength, an emotional strength. But some of that does come when we stand there and we look in the mirror and you say, well, I've scrubbed up. I know, I'm the best I can be.
Yeah.
That's what I've done. Now, my job, we can't beat about the bush on this one. I have worked in a visual medium for most of my life. Since I was 26, I got my first job in television. Prior to that, I was messing around in radio, doing various bits and bobbies. But I have had to, scrubbing up and showing up has been part of what I've done. And if I wanted to continue in this business, then I've had to, it's a visual medium. I wouldn't be doing the job I'm doing. I wouldn't be employed by various companies. I wouldn't be brand ambassador for, a beauty company if I hadn't scrubbed up. So I have done it but I've done it professionally, and I started a long time ago because that is part of my business. Now, you can argue the whys and wherefores of that, and there's lots of people in my business who will say, oh, well, you know, I get looked over because, you know, of my age. And some jobs, absolutely, I get looked over because of my age. But in actual fact, there's a lot out there if you're not moulding yourself to what somebody wants. But there is a lot out there if you keep yourself a good product of your age. And that's all you need to do. You don't have to be silly about it. You know, we don't have to be totally injected and lifted and anything like that. You just need to be a good product of your age and have a positive outlook and not think, oh, nobody wants me, nobody wants me, nobody wants me. And then we go back to energy. So part of my business has been to look right in a camera, and I know how to scrub up.
You absolutely do. And so let's go back to let's now talk about relationships.
Right.
And again, I mean, you know, obviously the last session was about, you know, relationship change, and you know, and our experts spoke very eloquently about divorce and managing that. But you know, it's one thing to go through a relationship breakdown
In the Daily Mail.
Yeah, in the sort of privacy of your own home. It's another thing to do that under the scrutiny of the press. I mean, how? I don't know if you're happy to talk about that, but you know, it must be pretty difficult.
Looking back, I can talk about it. At the time, it was excruciating. I do remember counting 13 journalists and photographers outside my front door and one up a tree. And weirdly, only a month ago, I met the man up a tree who was up a tree. He's working in he's working in press. He's working in PR now in the beauty business. And he eventually, having known him and worked with him for a couple of weeks, he finally actually told me he was the man up the tree.
I was the one at the tree, and you're God.
And when you find there's a white van that seems to have been sitting outside your home for quite a long time, and it looked like a BT van, because it had, you remember that BT where it was a sort of, you know, the horn and and I suddenly looked, they'd got a GB sticker on. I thought, well, I'm sure BT vans don't have GB stickers on, do they? Where are they going to go abroad? Where's he going to? And I went up and realised that actually it was an old BT van. I could see that horn was still there, but it was completely cameraed up inside with absolutely everything. You know, it looked like MI5 had pulled up. And it was a very bad time in journalism. And obviously, we've all heard of the phone tapping and things, and I was tapped a lot. In fact, they have tickets against various people's names, and I think the highest is about 21, and I had 14 tickets against my name, where private investigators had been looking at medical records, bank records, absolutely everything.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was a terrible time. Thankfully, Hugh Grant, who's old enough and ugly enough and famous enough to take them to task, and I thank him from the bottom of my heart, because he changed it. And I know people who work in the legal profession will know how bad it was and how much better it is now. It's not perfect, we never will be, but it's a lot better now. But we have social media, we have a right of reply now. But as far as, you know, somewhere, it is an awful thing. Divorce is an awful thing. It doesn't matter who's initiated it. It's hard. It's really hard, because you are pulling apart. By nature, I think we are builders. We build, we want to make, we want to create. As soon as you start to pull something apart, even if it's for all the right reasons you're pulling something apart, and in my case, I always think, be careful what you wish for. Nobody worked as hard as I did to try and save my marriage, and I am so glad that the universe went, no. No, because I wouldn't be me now had I stayed in that marriage and I didn't realise it. So again, it's not me putting a positive spin. It is a reality.
And a rear view mirror as well. Being able to look in the rear view mirror of, you know, beyond the pain and you know, with years past.
I wasn't looking in a rear view. I don't know what I was looking at. I was doing it. We hold on. You know, I think by nature we have to always look. Who are we as humans? You know, we spend a huge amount of time on television with David Attenborough. We know a lot about animals. We know a lot about their families. We know a heck of a lot about penguins. We don't really know a huge amount about us, about people. Thankfully, we've got an organisation like this to bring us together to discuss it, but we don't actually. There hasn't been a programme where you unzip the human and unzip us and see what we're like inside, how we react to things. And I think it would be a fascinating study. I've got as far as writing one page on this. I need to write the rest. Because whether it is anatomically or emotionally, we sometimes don't talk enough about just being a human. What was it you asked me? Hold on a second. I don't know.
Well,
hold on a second.
I can't remember that.
Anyway,
yeah, someone help me.
So we always have to go back to the core of how we react to things. Now, I think humans, we don't like change. I don't like change. I really rail against change.
Because it takes you out of a comfort zone.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah. So sometimes, because we don't like change, we hold on to things that we actually should be letting go of. But we can't see that because we're in our own human mist at this point. And that lovely saying, we can't see the wood for the trees. The tide has gone out. and I think that I think now, looking back, I reacted, or I policed myself a little bit better than I could have done because I was in the public eye. I think that I have been and become very self-aware because I've had to be, because it's part of my job, and it's part of the environment that I work in. And because of that, once I had got my war paint on, blown dry my hair, got dressed, listened to my mother, and set about realising that I couldn't change, you know, I had to deal with this, then I think I policed myself quite well. I couldn't, as angry as I felt, there were lots of things that were running through my head that I wanted to do. But I knew that wouldn't be a very good career move. It wouldn't look well on me. And the other thing is, I don't have any children of my own, but I have 3 gorgeous stepdaughters that are in my life every day of my life. They've been with me since they were 2, 5, and 6, and I had to protect them and protect the family in some way, which is why, and I know we have at least 2 divorce lawyers in here today, which is why I didn't do anything. It's probably actually, maybe it's just not in me in any case as a human being, but I just thought I have to protect myself. I have to protect the girls. And revenge is a dish best served cold. And if you really, really want to get to that other person, be nice. Because that really backfoots them. They don't know what to do. Because they can't say, look at her screaming and shouting and leaving abusive messages on my answering machine. Look at her. I was really nice. I used to know when she was 24 and blonde, obviously. I used to know when they'd be in the house, and I would ring up and say, oh, hi, just to let you know, I've taken the dog to the vet, and da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, loads of love, hi. And you know, it took a few years, but to be honest, you know, and we have laughed about it now. My ex-husband and I have discussed this, and he said he had to admit that didn't help him.
I'm so pleased you shared that story. You told me that story when we met over drinks, and I came home laughing because I think it will really resonate with a lot of people here.
Because you see, you've always got to put the other person, if you're the one who's initiated it, you've got to put that other person on the naughty step to justify what you've done. So you've got to think of all the worst things, the worst traits about that person. And I think I put it in my book. I remember he was trying to come up with bad things about me, and he said I took too long making Sunday lunch. And putting suntan lotion on. Really? Okay. I've not changed either of those things. But you've got to, by nature, and again, I come back to these little humans. If we want to justify an action, even if we've fallen out with a friend, we've got to make them bad, and we've got to think of all their bad traits. So that's what we do.
But I think also what is interesting.
I was determined not to be on that naughty step. I did everything I could. So I go back to tap dancing and Miss Congeniality.
But I think what's interesting is that you have famously talked about how you have managed to stay on good terms with your exes. How do you manage that?
Well, it's easier, to be honest. It was just easier. And I think because of the girls.
Yep.
Because of the girls, and because of the girls. And we had a shared history. A lot happened in that 13 years. We had a great time. Grant would say now it wasn't. Well, he said I wouldn't say this. It wasn't that bad. It couldn't be fixed. But we chose not to because he went on his own little trajectory, of which this little 24-year-old is not around anymore. Just saying. So, and I have to understand, he went through a bad time. He was in the property industry, he got made bankrupt, and instead of turning, to me for help, he just did what some boys do, lots of other things.
Tick the boxes.
Yeah, I'll just go out there.
But here you are, again, happy.
Yes.
In a relationship, again, talking sort of very openly about how happy you are. How did you, with two marriages behind you, how did you learn to trust again?
Well, because I think generally I trust people unless I hear different. I don't think it's in me. I don't think I'm particularly wired to think that everybody is out to get me. I had enough confidence in me. That's obviously had wobbled. There were lots of, tears and sick, most definitely. I had 5 years, sort of, dating around, about 5 years on my own. And that 5 years, and I think it was mentioned, who said it? Who said it? And I wrote it down. Look at all my writing. Wait a minute. Who said that all of a sudden you realise you've never done anything on your own? Was it? Thank you. I suddenly realised on my sort of nearly 5 years on my own, I had never bought a car on my own. My dad had done it, and then a boyfriend had helped me, and then my first husband, who I'm still very friendly with, and my fiance loves, which is always a bit weird. And I suddenly realized I never bought a car on my own. How crazy is that? And I was in my 50s. But I'd gone from a family to a boyfriend that I'd had for quite a long time, to a husband, to another husband. I'd never, ever actually been on my own. A shelf fell down. I didn't know what to do. I went online. You could get a man and a hammer to come, but it was £90. It was £90 just to turn up and just look at it. So I went to B&Q, bought myself a drill, some raw plugs. I put that shelf up, blew out a tyre on a roundabout, and thought, shit, because I would have just run Grant. He would have come out. He'd have said, "You go home in my car. I'll sort it all out." He would have sorted it all out. I had to sort it out somewhere around about 1 o'clock in the morning. I got some quick fit person and and slowly thought I can do all these things. I'm regaining a confidence because there was lots and lots of things, and it's not. It's just the way that where you're in a relationship, there are blue jobs and pink jobs, and sometimes there are pinky bluey jobs, and sometimes they cross over. But generally speaking, there are lots of things. Mortgages. I'd never actually sorted one out myself.
Yeah.
All on my own. There were lots of shocks, and you were very right there. And I think that resonated ping with me. Yes, that was me. All of a sudden, I had to learn, and in the last 5 years, it hasn't made me. Oh, I'm so, self-controlled now, and I can do anything. I don't need you. Of course, I think we need humans. Humans need humans. I'm not a lone operator. I have a product company. I run it with Vicky over there. I'm not a lone person. I like to work with people. I'm a team player. I grew up to share my toys. You work in television and you want to work with a nice team. Eamon Holmes, obviously, I'm just going to put it was an exception, that he didn't want to share his toys with me. He didn't, and it was such a shame because I wasn't bothered about pinching his toy box. He could have, I leave it. It was all fine. He's apologised since, and we now are friends, but my God, that was testing. Because I come from a lovely world of Blue Peter and children's television where everybody did share their toys and it was all really lovely. And then I end up in this world of breakfast television, which is crazy, frightening in comparison. I remember being on set, like us, we'd be sitting here, there's all cameras there, there was a little coffee table, and I'd started to sort of find my power. It was all over a pink suit, to be honest. When I arrived at GMTV, I arrived on the Monday, and what I didn't dare tell them is I'd only got enough smart clothes to get me to Wednesday. And I hadn't really thought this through. Nobody said, oh, you need, because everybody else had sort of, worked in news quite a lot and maybe got lots of power jackets already in their wardrobe, and I hadn't. They sort of had a wardrobe department, but it was all, it was very hick compared to what it is now. And by the Thursday, I arrived in a sort of jumper, a bit of a pleated skirt, and some monkey boots and an over-the-knee socks. I had got, it was terrible. What was I thinking? I'm not quite sure what I was thinking. Anyway, I did. So there was obviously, what is she wearing? So then they had a coach came in and all sorts of things. Oh, hair, they didn't like my hair because it wasn't like a nice simple bob and things like that. So it was a huge mess, really, my early days at GMTV. And I really had come from Blue Peter. I was so confident, and my confidence just went shtumba. And Eamon was being quite nice to me there because I needed him and because I was deferring absolutely everything to him. So eventually I was taken to Harvey Nichols and I was taken to be scrubbed up by this lovely American lady who taught me investment dressing. They got me all these things. It was like Julia Roberts. I was there and all these clothes were coming in. And and I spied on the list. I tried these clothes and I thought, oh, nice. And I feel oh, yeah, nice. Have that. We'd cut through to a few weeks, like 3 weeks after the original terrible outfit. I walked onto the stage, onto the studio floor, in a Dolce & Gabbana pink suit, which was cracking. I tidied my hair up a little bit. Makeup was looking good. And I sat down, and that was the first time where I thought, I've got this. I was so emotional about this. I've got this. I can do this. It was putting on a costume. I needed to look the part. I needed to look the part, to play the part, to be the part. I needed to be that person. It's not that wasn't me. that was, you know, don't think that this is not, that's getting any deep and psychological. I needed to look the part. And I think it was Margaret Thatcher that said 50% of the job is looking the part. And I have carried that through to this day. Wherever I go, I think, right, especially if I'm going, hey, I'm coming here. I tried 3 different things on before I got here. You want to look the part and you'll feel more confident whenever you're going into a meeting, if you're going into, whether it's, whatever it is you're going into, do your very best to look the part. And that was the suit. Prior to that, I say, we were sitting like this. It's a lovely coffee table with all the papers. You've obviously, because it's a breakfast show, we've got the broadsheets and we've got the red tops there. And a journalist who happened to be reading the news at the time walked over, picked up this paper, and it was the Telegraph. And she said, "Oh, Anthea, sorry, were you reading this one?" And I went, no, sure. Silly bee, you only read the red tops, don't you? Walked off to her news station. So I... You don't even think I can feel that lump coming up. Anyway, in the pink suit, and it was actually Christine Evans, your godmother, who then set something up for the first time, and it was called Best Dressed Woman in Television, and I won it! So I'm always grateful to her for that.
We actually had the same jacket.
Ah, did you?
Well, you didn't know, I knew. Pink Caroline Charles. With
Oh my God, she took me to Caroline Charles, absolutely.
Amazing.
But Beach and Place was just amazing. And the Princess of Wales was always walking up and down there. San Lorenzo was at its height. Yes, it was amazing. Anyway, so confidence, you find confidence. You've got to create confidence.
What a wonderful story.
It's a silly story.
I want to finish with, I guess, sort of one question about you. You know, here you are, that wonderful journey from GMTV to author to, you know, all these different sort of strands in your life and these, you know, these huge accomplishments. But here you are in your 60s as an entrepreneur. And so how does that feel to add that to your list of accomplishments? You know, here you are launching this amazing skincare business, writing books. You know, Anthea Turner, not just broadcaster, author, but here entrepreneur. How does that feel, you know, up there in terms of your accomplishments?
I've always known how to make a little go a long way. So I think what you do, you see, in this business there was a time when you were a television presenter and that was it. The world has opened up, and what we have to do is open up with it. Social media has been, and I know that social media gets a bad rap, but it's also a great communicator.
Yeah.
It's a place to find your tribe.
Yeah.
It's a place where at one time we would have to ask marketeers to go, and we would spend a fortune trying to find out about, you know, where our audience are if you work in marketing and PR. You don't now. You can find them through Facebook, through Instagram. I was very lucky that let's call it my fame star, rose when we weren't a diluted medium. So therefore I have quite a few decades. I started in the 1980s and I'm still here around, and people of all ages. I suppose what I tend to get now is an awful lot of little boys who aren't little anymore. They're somewhere in their 30s, 40s, saying, "I made Tracy Island with you. You were my Blue Peter presenter." So what I've been able to do is to, probably by always being here, staying in the business in some shape or form, is I've been able to find my people. You have found your people. We're here. There's young people, there's some older, but we found like-minded people. Slightly ageless, but like-minded people. And I think that I have been lucky enough to have a country full of friends and people who will always come up to me and have a chat and feel that they know me because they've seen me. So we go not from, hello, I don't know who you are. Some people here have met, some people know each other. But I feel that fame has been actually a beautiful part of my life because I've now got hold of it. I understand it. I know where it came from. I know how it grows, and I know what people want. So if they want to know how to age well, I've covered that. If they want to know how to survive divorce, I've covered that. If they want to know how to look after their skin, I've managed to cover that. I have an amazing address book, so I am able to find information out and pass it on. And I do think Instagram is a wonderful thing. None of us in this room will get involved in the downside of social media. We don't have to. But for us, it's a very positive, uplifting environment where people share information. And if I want to know anything, from how to cook something to an item of clothing, I will somewhere find it on Instagram, which to me is the most wonderful arena of pictures. So for somebody who's dyslexic, that's amazing. All I've got to do is look at all of those. So funnily enough, I did a magazine interview just under 12 months ago. And the question was put to me, or statement of the question, how do you feel about setting up a brand, a company in your 60s? And I have to say, I was stumped. I didn't know what to say. She threw me. And that sounds quite silly, really, because it never occurred to me that you couldn't do that was a weird thing to do. And I then had to really think about it. So why is it an odd thing to do? Why? I don't think so. The reason for setting up by Anthea Turner is that I have Vicky, my business partner over there, who's also my momager, my manager. And goodness me, if Vicky had been in my life 20 years ago, I think I wouldn't have gotten some of the scrapes I got into. But anyway, on the basis that, what do we want to do? We want to feel good and we want to look good. And it's skin. All of a sudden, you look in the mirror and you go, what happened to my skin? What happened to my hands? What happened to my neck? My goodness me. And if it hasn't happened yet, it will. Whatever you think, it will. And I also realized that over the years, I think I've spent a small fortune on lotions and potions and creams. I don't like clutter. I don't like too many things around. I love doing that program, Perfect Housewife. It's one of my favorite programs. So I like to keep things nice and tidy. And I just had a bathroom moment, and you've got all these products. And you think, do I really need all these products? Is it going to make any difference? Really? Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things. And I said, can I just have one product that does at least, 4 or 5 different things? So I started to look into this. It took a while because I am my N of 1, so I had to start testing out a few things. And I pulled together all the things I liked. I knew I liked. There were elements of lots of creams that I liked. So, I wanted to be able to take my makeup off. I wanted to be able to nurture and moisturize my skin. I wanted to be able to moisturize my hair because it gets quite dry, because it gets blow dried to bugger. I wanted to keep my eyelashes from breaking because we stick mascara on our eyelashes and it's drying. I wanted to stop my eyelashes breaking, and my eyebrows, I wanted to keep those all healthy and nice. And my hands and my cuticles and my feet, my aging feet. So I pulled all these things together, and Vicky, just by coincidence, knew somebody, don't you always, you'll relate to this, at the school gate, who was a chemist. Let's have a meeting. So armed with all my bits and pieces, we create, and we tested out so much stuff, honestly. I'm making it sound like it happened overnight, it really didn't. But we pulled together a balm, which is over there, it's called Balm 6. And in one part, you can take your makeup off. You can put it in your hair as a hair mask. You can put it all on in the daytime. I'm often up in the morning doing bits and bobbies around the house. And I just think, oh, I just stick it on before I jump in the shower. I've got a lip balm. It's good for my eyebrows and my eyelashes and my cuticles. And I put it on as a night cream in one pot. Do you really need 6 different things? No, you don't. You need one pot. We need to nourish our skin. Of course we do. It's exposed to the elements, especially our hands and our face. Yes, you need to nourish your skin. Yes, if a skin is hydrated and nourished, your wrinkles won't look as bad. You hydrate from the inside and from the outside. And yes, you can make your skin look a lot. You can get your bloom back by nourishing your skin. I put things in, I'd been, looked at ingredients. I'd looked at prickly pear, which is nature's hyaluronic acid. I'd looked at obviously shea butter, cocoa butter. Anybody with a black skin will know that coconut oils and cocoa butter and shea butter, and my friend who I'd worked with at Blue Peter was constantly covering herself in it, her skin in it. So that was all going to go in. I knew that I wanted castor oil because it's great for your hair, your eyelashes, your eyebrows. I wanted to be able to remove my makeup easily. So obviously the shea butter and goes all work hand in hand with that. I love olive oil. I have a shot of olive oil every single day. Can I just tell you, I don't ache. A shot of olive oil. We talk about the Mediterranean diet. Drink olive oil. A shot. Is so good for you. I've been doing it for years now and promise you it works. So everybody talks about the Mediterranean diet, but my goodness me, there are lots of things about the Mediterranean diet that are not that good. But it's the olive oil. So I put olive oil in it. Sea moss. It's got antibacterial properties in. So it's all in the pot. The money's in the pot. It's not in a load of fancy advertising. Vicky bought her own jumper. I know she looks like she looks like the product. She bought it herself, look at that. But it is. It's a really easy way. We did a body cream. Do you really need a different hand cream, a different body cream, a different cream for your feet? No, you don't. So we did body 3, which you can. So between those 2 pots, we've got so much covered. We are bringing out actually a face cream. Which you can just use in the day, which you can put your, and I've been testing a lot out. In fact, we've got it's all in compliance at the moment, and we'll get it certificated, and we'll be able to launch it in January. By the time we've got that one out, we've got 13 body parts covered, and that's it in 3 pots.
Wow. So 3-pot Anthea.
Yes.
You can have
or
all
just
your
potty.
You can have all your needs covered, and so Anthea will be here over lunch.
Yes.
And we'll sign books if you want to buy some of her books. But Anthea, I mean, I feel we could go on and on, but we can't. But I just want to thank you. I mean, the story of reinvention, that story of positivity, I think is the most amazing inspiration to us all.
Thank you
Please
very
join
much.
me in thanking Anthea Turner. Thank you so much.